Howdy-ho, everybody. So let me tell you a quick story about that Patty 11 thing. So I've lived in Japan for about the last 13 years, and I get confused for people a lot. So I went through a bit of a Harry Potter phase, and it was kind of fun when kids actually thought I was the character rather than Daniel Radcliffe. But sadly, both of us grew out of that. I got confused a lot for fellow MicroConf attendee Keith, who was with me in Ogaki, our little town in central Japan, for about 10 years. And most of the people in town were unaware that there were, in fact, 2 white software entrepreneurs in town. And when they were apprised that we're, in fact, 2, they would tell us things like, hey, can you get a message to Keith for me? Because I have a meeting with him at 6 o'clock, and clearly you must know him. And because it's Ogaki, that was actually right, and he was the best man at my wedding. Worked out. I don't know what the moral is there. I get confused for Eminem, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. So there's a lot not to like about Eminem. There is one thing to like. The song Lose Yourself is the best startup song ever. And I actually sing it a little bit to myself before I come out on stage here because I'm nervous, but on the surface I'll look calm and ready. And so last year I started working at Stripe, and I've picked up a new doppelganger. So I was literally at the launch of Stripe Japan and introduced myself to a reporter as, hi, my name is Patrick and I work at Stripe. That is a mistake I will not soon make again. So they call me Patty 11 at Stripe and Patty 11 virtually everywhere else, and the only people who call me Patrick are my wife and my little daughter, except she pronounces it Patrick. I've never been confused for Liam Neeson, but if I was, that would be kind of badass. And I don't need to look like him, I would just love his voice. Because I have a very particular set of skills, gained over the course of a long career. Skills that make me good at basically one thing, and that is selling software over the internet. About that much software. And I don't say that to pump myself up. I know there's some folks in the room who haven't sold dollar number 1 yet, and you look at over $1 million and feel, wow, that's impressive. Not really. It took me about 10 years, and that's a revenue figure, not a profit figure. And you might say, wow, I can never be there. I think, nope, you really can. And you might think that it's been easy sailing for the past 10 years. No. One of the things that I like about MicroConf is we can kind of be real about things, be a bit honest, even when honesty is kind of raw. So I have a story. I'm going to steal a slide from a presentation I did last year when everything in my career looked like it was up and to the right. I made bingo card creator, I sold bingo cards to elementary school teachers, and then I got good enough at selling software for companies that companies you've heard of, like Fog Creek, would bring me in to consult with them under the umbrella of Kalzumius. Joel Spolsky actually told me, you seem like something of a guru in this SEO and marketing thing. How about doing that for a company that is not bullshit? I love Joel. And I stopped consulting after a while. I started up another SaaS company and went in kind of nice places. And then I started Starfighter. And it was, Starfighter was going to find engineering recruits for software companies. And it was a beautiful, beautiful business model. I worked very hard for a year and a half. I built the coolest thing I've ever built. It was genuinely good software, the first time in my life. I built a stock exchange and a world simulation that was robust enough to find insider traders on the stock exchange. And people actually did it, and they played it, and they loved it. Starfighter failed, totally and completely, and it was mostly my fault as the CEO. And I would like to tell you more about that story, because I love telling stories, even the hard stories. But I can't really tell you so much about the stories. For the 2 companies I've sold, I can't tell you the story because I don't own it anymore. And for that one, I had 2 co-founders along for the ride. And when things break up, as they do, you kind of lose ownership over that story. So out of sort of concern for their feelings on it, I'll just tell you some anecdotes about the McKenzie family story for the last year. This is my wife, Rudiko, my daughter, Lillian, and Liam, who was born 2 months ago. Last year, thanks. Last year, I don't remember exactly when we had this conversation because 18 months of my life kind of blurs together. But Rudiko came up to me and she said, hey, I know you've been working really hard recently, and I appreciate all that you do for the family and working very hard. Maybe you should stop and do something that makes you happy. And I said, what? I'm very happy. You know, we've just been going through a bit of a rough patch the last couple of weeks. She's like, nope, we've been married for too many years for that. I've seen you through rough patches. I've seen you depressed. I have never seen you unhappy, and you are unhappy right now. And I would like to say that I looked at the love of my life and said, darn it, you're right. That took a couple months. I would like to say that I listened to all my friends who said, things are going really poorly for you. You should look at other options. Didn't listen to them either. I would like to say I listened to my professional advisors that said this was affecting my health. Didn't listen to them. And it took me months to realize the hole we were kind of in. An anecdote from that. I think it was last January, although it all blurs together for me. Last January, I was at a quote-unquote real financial services company talking to someone who controls a very, very large budget there for hiring engineers. I was the CEO of this recruiting company that they were bringing in. I had just built and launched a stock exchange. Life looked like it was going grand. And I stepped out of the room to take a call from my landlord. My landlord said, hey, Patrick, I didn't get the rent this month. And I said, sorry, banking issue. I will fix that when I get back to Japan. Technically correct is the best form of correct. I had no money in the bank, and that was an issue. When we folded up the company, I owed about $25,000 to MasterCard and about $10,000 to Amex, and I'll save you the whole butcher's bill, but it sums to about that. And was this in the midst of prehistory? No, this was last August. And this story has kind of a happy ending, but I don't want to spend all this time up here telling my story. I want to tell your story. I want to talk about the business that many of you want to run over the course of the next couple of years. How many of you think, I really, really want to run a software business? I think you're going to get there eventually. And I'm a sassy guy. I love software as a model. I've been doing it for 10 years. And I don't want to discourage you at all. But I want to tell you, don't start a business in SaaS yet. Run another business first. And here's why. I think that you think, or some of you might be under the misapprehension, that step number one in starting a software business is to write some freaking software. This is an easy mistake to make. There's actually a lot of things you need to do before you can take dollar number one in a SaaS business. This is my shock and awe slide. Don't try to read it all, you'll go blind. You need to do all of that before launching to customer number one. And if you spend 6 months on grinding it out, you make your Ansible scripts, you get your account at AWS, you deploy, you figure out how to do testing, you have your backup strategy in place, you do all of this work. Do you know how much revenue you will have after 6 months? Big fat zero. And I have lived the big fat zero before. I have come to realize something about starting businesses, and this isn't my own realization, this is something that people who actually did that for a living in the time before, when was it, 2006? I suppose there were businesses before 2006. They will tell you that a business is a simple thing. It is a search for a repeatable sales process. You find customers, you convince them to give you money, you satisfy them, you bring them back, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. And that's what you're building in the business, a process for finding those customers. And the satisfaction of them is kind of a detail that you can figure out later after you've figured out how to find them. People tell me that I kind of have a knack for this whole marketing and sales thing. Absolutely untrue. I was nights and weekends on Bingo Card Creator for a very, very long time. It took me about 5.5 years of nights and weekends before I was getting to the point where I would feel comfortable doing the business as my main source of income. This is the profit graph for the first 5.5 years of my business. And only in that last year, after I had quit the day job and was kind of tightrope walking without a net, was it at a point where I could feel pretty comfortable with where I was financially. So I want to convince you all to make your business first and then write your software later. And I appreciate that Ben opened the conference up with the talk of, let's take a quick survey and see where everyone is. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I know there's some folks at zero, some folks are at a couple $100s a month, some folks are at $2,000 a month, et cetera, et cetera. I want to give you a target for next year. And that target is $12,000 a month. I think that is within reach for people here who execute, just do meat and potatoes execution on a business model. You don't have to be a genius. You can do this, just make better mistakes than I made over the years. And not the same mistakes, which is the goal of all these presentations too. We made the mistakes, so you don't have to. You can make your own mistakes, better mistakes, preferably mistakes after you know where the rent is coming from. I didn't just pick $12,000 out of the air. I didn't just take the $10,000 that has been thrown around to previous MicroConfs and adjust for inflation. $12,000 comes from a relatively simple calculation. You're going to spend about 1/3 of your business take on overheads, on paying other SaaS, paying for hosting, yada, yada. That leaves you with about $8,000 a month, which will feel like you're a gainfully employed programmer in the United States. You won't feel like running your business is a hardship. And I want you to get out of that hardship for money mode as soon as possible. And then after you're there, you can do whatever you want. If you want to make a video game, you can make a video game. If you want to make software for hobbyists, you can make software for hobbyists. If you want to make software for churches, you can make software for churches. But until you get up to $12,000 of predictable, repeatable revenue a month, I'm going to give you a very opinionated piece of advice brought from the voice of long experience in selling $24.95 software to teachers, elementary school teachers, and retirees. And that is, you want to be selling to businesses. I'm going to totally steal something from Nick DeSabato. He said once that he sells to the economic engine of the planet. And darn it, is that a good quote. You should sell to the economic engine of the planet. If you've not run a business before, you might not have experienced the truth of this yourself, but oh my goodness, our business is capable of spending lots and lots of money on things. For those of you whose business comped you this travel, you know, like, there are probably folks in this room who are worried whether you can sell their SaaS for even $20 a month. I was like that one day. I was worried about selling software for $20 once. I thought that was highway robbery, and then pay $35 a night for the Wi-Fi at a business conference, and think that's cost of doing business, whatever. You want to be selling to businesses as well. And what is the thing that you could, well, who here, let's say, take a show of hands, who here feels confident, I can do enterprise sales right now? Let's say, I feel pretty confident I can sell at least one business on paying me 6 figures. Show of hands. Not so many. Okay. Let's rephrase that. Who here has ever sold at least one business on a business proposition which sounds like, I show up at your office every day and you pay me at least $3,000 a month? Wow, lots of hands. You thought that was a job. No, you were just a consultant with a really, really poor client pool, but you had sold one company on a proposition which is going to cost them 6 figures over the expected lifetime of yourself at that company. You can do that again, but you can sell a better thing for more money. Let's talk about productized consulting. So, everyone knows what a product business looks like versus a services business. In a product business, you get something, and in a service business, you get something done. And productized consulting is kind of like the weird love child of these two. It's basically a service. Someone is doing something for you, but you can point to it on a price list and say, yep, that is what I want, and you get exactly that. I went to get a haircut in Tokyo recently. My son's name is Liam, and so my wife gave me the instructions, go to the barbershop and get a haircut that makes you look like Liam from New Direction. And so I went to the barbershop and I asked, how much is a haircut? They said $60 or whatever that is in yen. And I said, great, can you make me look like Liam from New Direction? The guy looks at me and he Googles Liam from New Direction. It's like, for $60, I can poof up the front and trim a little bit off the sides, and that's what you get because I'm not a miracle worker. And I said, that's exactly what I want. And I went home, and I told my wife I had tried to look like Liam from New Direction, and she said that was awesome. And justice was served for that day, and the guy totally got his $60. What didn't happen there? There was no long discussion with him about, okay, I need to run your MSA for the haircut past my legal department. There was no, deep meeting of the minds on, let's talk, Mr. McKenzie, when you say you want to look like Liam from New Direction, what is your spirit motivating you to look like Liam from New Direction? What problem in your life brought me to this haircut place to look like New Direction? No. It's just like, this is what I want. That's the thing you routinely sell. I want it. Let's go. You can do that in productized consulting. What businesses typically are typically a good fit for productized consulting? Doing operations for companies. Operations is a repetitive task in the business that they do all the time. If you're not aware of operational tasks at a representative set of companies, a good place to look is at SaaS that already exists. There's a service that's called Tarsnap. It does backups. This is true of Tarsnaps and true of MailChimp and true of every other SaaS that exists. If there is something that people can log into, it is someone's job to log into the thing and to do something in the thing. That is an operational process. And at many, many SaaS companies, as anyone who's ever run a SaaS company can tell you, a lot of their clients really, really suck at their job. They don't actually log into the thing. They don't actually do the work. You can go to clients and say, clearly you understand that doing, in Rob's case, business email is relevant to your business because you're paying hundreds of dollars a month to an email provider. But you're not actually doing the work. I will do that work for you. We will take that business process away from you, give it to me, and for a repeatable amount of money, for a repeatable amount every month, I will do it. Reporting and analysis is another good sign that there's a productized business in play. A lot of businesses know that they are drowning in data. They don't know exactly what data is relevant to their needs, and they don't know what that data actually tells them to do as the business owner. What decision can I uniquely make based on this data? You can say, I will find the data source for you from your existing data sources. I will do the analysis, and I will tell you some suggestions going forward based on this data source. And now you, being the guy who gets a lot of money for running the business, you implement those suggestions. It's a great thing. Training is also a productized business, a very productizable consulting service, rather. You teach people how to do their jobs better. I'm going to share a slide. It is the most important 2 words that I say almost every year at MicroConf. I hear chuckles here because people have heard this one from me before, but I will put in my slide deck every year until I die because almost nothing else has as much leverage for moving your business. It's charge more. And I'm so well known for this that even before I joined Stripe, apparently there was talk of making charge more mode, Patio 11 mode in the Stripe subscriptions product, where you would put in the price for this plan is $100, and a little pop-up with Patio 11 in the HTML would pop up and say, "Don't you mean $199?" That was seriously a thing. I dropped by the Stripe office a few years ago and talked to Patrick Collison. I don't remember what about, and John tweeted out this joke after it. And Patrick Collison has a mind like a steel trap, and he's like, "No, you really did tell us to charge more." It works so well. There is almost nobody in this room who's charging the optimal amount of money for this project, and I think there's probably nobody who's charging too much. But that's not operationalizable. I can't just tell you double your prices. Well, I can just tell you double your prices. Double your prices. But if you have no price already, then doubling a nil is just going to get you some error in your language of choice. If you just need to steal a pricing grid written by somebody who wrote these for people and charged a lot of money for doing it, if you're selling info products, just steal this pricing. The ebook, I'll teach you to do something, $49. The ebook plus interviews, for example, $99. The ebook plus interviews plus code samples or templates or pre-filled workflows, et cetera, $249. Steal it, move on. This is good enough to get started. If you want the advanced class, the big problem in the info product business is that folks buy the thing and then don't actually do the work. So if you can invite them to a group lesson or an hour on Skype with you to say, okay, you've read the thing, you've watched the videos, you've seen the sample code, have you actually shipped that application? Just the act of asking that, have you shipped that, is worth money to them. It's worth quite a lot of money, and your time is valuable. So charge $250 for asking that question. If you were doing a training business model, here's stuff that works. This is a little sensitive to what area you're training in, both in terms of what technical topic you're teaching, I'm assuming technical for this audience, and what geographic region you're teaching. Just steal these numbers. A subtlety, I won't read the entire slide to you, but you're mostly going to be doing technical training for software companies. And software companies are really paranoid about intellectual property. And I was doing a training event once, and the CEO of the company said, "Do you mind if we videotape this training event?" And I said, "Of course I don't mind." Record scratch, freeze frame, let's step back from that for a moment. The performance I'm giving as a trainer has value. I've developed it over the course of a very long career. And giving it to a client for the training produces value for them as well, because there are some people who will eventually be doing programming work on behalf of their company who are not currently in the room. They might not be hired yet. They might be in a different job at the company. They might just be out today. It is valuable for them to receive the training without flying me on a plane back from Japan to, in that case, New York City, to receive the training again. So they would be happy to pay additional money for videos of the event. And because they are a software business and they are religious about intellectual property, they will say, do you own this intellectual property? And you will think to yourself, say, yes, but I will sell it to you. I will license it to you. And they will pay just for that license and nothing else. And if you wonder, do I need to bring in a video crew? No, you don't need to bring in a video crew. You don't need to host the videos. They've already got that handled. Just charge them for it. For doing an online event for a single company, I would like to charge $250 a seat or $5,000 for the event, regardless of depending on which one they want. And again, this is for the live training. If you want the videos, I'm happy to give you a copy of the videos taken from Skype or whatever I'm using to deliver the live training, and that will cost you $3,000. You can host it on your SharePoint or whatever you use internally till the end of time. For online training that you deliver to the public, where you're selling tickets, I like selling them for $99. Again, you're selling to the economic engine of the planet. Even if you're selling to an individual Drupal engineer, has an income high in the 5 or low 6 figures, and they are learning about something to make their business work better. They are probably expensing it to an employer, or they're expensing it to their business, and the huge amount of money that goes into running a business every month. Charge $99 for a lecture, even if that lecture is an hour long. If you do a half day, charge $249. I suggest not doing training longer than a half day online. And the reason is, oh God, you get bored after a while, you're sitting in the chair, and it's just a miserable, miserable user experience. I have sold people 2-day training events for $500 before, thinking I need to beef up the amount of content to get up to that $500 price point that I want. That was a mistake. Many of the people didn't even show up for day number 2. A lot of the people were like, I'm totally checked out after the first 4 hours of this. Why are you keeping me here? I was torturing my customers to get them to give me more money. Not a repeatable sales process. Instead, give them the curated, very focused version of the training and then move on. What if you are running a process for a business and you don't know what to charge? You just want to put one price and try testing that with people. I have a great price for you. It's $800 a month. Did I pick that randomly? Almost. Divided 12K by 15 because you can all get 15 people to say yes to anything. And then that gets to 800. And if you think, the thing I am thinking of doing is not rationally worth $800 a month, I think you underestimate how many things that businesses will pay $800 a month for. I think you could probably convince a business, I will take out the trash for you for $800 a month. And I don't say that as a joke. I mean that every business with more than 20 employees pays much more than $800 to have someone come in every day and take out the trash because their employees' time is worth too much to actually walk an extra 100 feet to the trash themselves. Find the valuable thing, pitch them on $800 a month. If no one bites on this, find a different, more valuable thing. So what you need to build to do a productized consulting business. Do you have to write an enormous number of scripts? Do you have to build up software before you can ever pitch this to somebody? No. Here's what you should implement in order. First, a landing page. I like to call this my flag in the internet. Hey, internet, you don't know me yet, but my name is blah, and I intend to be the person to go to on this topic. You don't have to write a whole lot of copy, just if you want to be the productized consultant in Rails Active Record Optimization. Hi, my name is Patrick, and I do Rails Active Record Optimization, and that's it. If you know you're interested in this, give me your email address. And then you're going to write or produce 3 artifacts to demonstrate your expertise. You said, Patrick, what is an artifact? An artifact is a way for me to convey that something has value. So there was a civilization that happens to be geographically co-located with Japan, but predates it by a lot, called the Youll civilization. The Youll civilization produced artifacts in pottery. And if you go into any museum, it will say, this is an artifact of the Youll civilization. That's just some clay and some rope which someone put together for the purpose of defecating in. But we say it is an artifact because we know that it's valuable. These guys got to the whole clay, rope, defecation outside of your own hut thing before anybody else did. They were very good at what they do. But because they fixed that in a physical form, we now know that they were able to do that. Because this speech might be fixed in a physical form. 3,000 years from now, some civilization we haven't met yet might realize that both the Youll and the American were aware of the not defecating in hut principle. So don't just write blog posts, don't just write content. It's on my business cards, but man, do I hate that word. Write something valuable, which tells the world, I am good at this thing. Then after you've produced 3 little things to say, I know my stuff, move on to writing a sales page for the offering. Sales page is just, I know my stuff as evidenced by X and Y and Z. I can do it for your company for a certain price. Here's what it'll look like. If you're interested, buy it. Then you write a 1-month email course. I could talk a lot about 1-month email courses. I actually did a course on writing 1-month email courses. I will give it to you for free, link later. Then write a premium, which just means an artifact, which exposes people to the existence of the email course. So give me your email address. I will hand you an artifact. It will not be pottery. You will not defecate in it. It will tell you how to do something for your business. And then you can actually start implementing the offering after you've got paying customers for it. What does this actually require? What does it look like a little more concretely? Just like almost everybody in this room is sufficiently expert at enterprise sales to convince one company to stake 6 figures on a relationship with you. Almost everybody here is capable of doing a thing that a company values. That's what you do every day when you show up to work or show up to consulting. Just do you. Do that thing that is valuable. It's a good sign that people are already paying you to do it. You probably means that there are other people in the world that would pay you to do it too. Find repeatable outcomes of that thing you do that you can sell to folks. A line that I saw in Indie Hackers, comment on the Sidekick business was that the owner of the Sidekick business turned a repeatable outcome into a repeatable income. Ooh, I love that line. It sounds a little cheesy, but it's totally true. Find outcomes which are visible to clients. It's not good to wall yourself off in a little room and do your thing in a way that the client does not perceive, and then to send the client an invoice and say, okay, I want my $800 a month for doing my magic in the little room. Say, nope, here's the value that I produced for you this month, like every month. It's awesome. You don't even have to think about that thing. I will charge your credit card like normal. And then you create process around the thing you are doing. Let's go a little more concretely. Vegas is a town that's very into performances, and those performances are a routine. They are scripted. They were done once by someone who was like, that kind of worked, and then they wrote that down. And they can reproduce that performance on command every night, the same freaking way. And people pay them money every night to see the same thing. And they don't even pay the original performer money to say the thing. They will pay people whose literal job title is, I'm an impersonator of that performer you like, and I will perform the thing exactly like they did, except kind of a little worse, and maybe I'll have a little hammy dialogue with my announcer before it. And people will pay $90 for that tonight in quantity. You're going to figure out what part of your performance can be turned into a routine, and then you are going to make it into a routine that can be performed by someone other than you. That might be an employee of yours, or that might be a computer. So what are you going to sell? If you don't have a concrete idea already, sell things that the market already buys. Sell things that the market already buys from you. If you are a Rails developer and you teach other Rails developers at the office about Rails security, sell people training on Rails security. If you notice that people are using a substitute, for example, they are paying a lot of money for Marketo, which they are buying in the hopes that paying a lot of money to Marketo will improve their marketing outcomes. You can go to them and say, I will improve your marketing outcomes, like this. If Nick DeSabato had a great thing. He noticed that the market was paying a gratuitous amount of money for A/B testing services from this guy. And he said, I could do that on a monthly basis for a whole lot less money and get probably almost as good results. And he got some people to sign up for that and did indeed get very good results for them, and created a very good result for Nick and his wife and dog as well. I'm minorly jealous of Nick that I didn't think of that business model first. I would probably not have a day job if I did. Don't tell the Carlsons I said that. I like to get concrete at MicroConf, so a concrete but totally hypothetical business. I would call it Backup Czar. Not for any reason, just because that sounds cool. So I've run a business based on data for the last couple of years, a regulated business based on data, and I toss and turned at night thinking, what happens if I lose my data? Does anyone here actually run a SaaS business as of today? I'm going to pick on a random person in the front row. Do you have backups?
I do.
When's the last time you restored your backup? You don't have backups. Hence, backups are. I will make the backups, and I will test restoring the backups, and you will never have to worry about backups again. What does this look like when I'm talking to a client that has data? A 45-minute call. Tell me about what data you have that you would actually care about losing. Okay, give me access. You're on AWS, give me access to AWS. I need this level of permissions, whatever. I'm going to log into AWS. I'm going to set up backups. Yes, they will be a cron job. Yes, I know you have someone at the place that could have implemented cron jobs. They haven't. I will. Booyah. Backups are. Then I'm going to tell them, 2 weeks from now, you will have backups, and they will be tested, and they will be working. Backups are. 2 weeks later, I write them an email. I've done your backups because I am the backup czar. Here's your invoice. We will talk next month. What am I going to talk about next month? The backups that I did again and tested again, and the invoice that you are going to pay. I love giving clients beautiful reminders of why they are paying you money. So don't just do the backups in a cron job. Produce them a report about what you backed up. Great way to make reports. Gentleman in the front row runs a service called remark.io, which turns Markdown into beautiful PDF reports. By the way, never tell a client, I'm going to provide you a beautiful PDF report, because PDF doesn't surface any value. Say that you are going to produce an artifact telling them that their reports are better, that their backups are better. You don't have to call it an artifact. It kind of sounds a little hoity-toity, but better. You should think about how you're going to charge clients money every month, but not for very long. There's companies that can help you. Moving right along. We have this word internally at Stripe called Toil. I think we stole it from Google. Toilsome bits about your job are the parts that don't really bring a human worth of value, but have to get executed by a human. So, for example, if you're manually doing work every month, like manually doing backups, you're bringing an entire highly educated human to the hard problem of, can I execute this particular set of commands every month? That's toil. It's repetitive, it's grindy, and it never gets better. It doesn't surface any value to your customers, to your customers' customers, but it just has to get done. You should automate toil. I'll give you an example of automating toil, which I'm stealing from Stripe. So part of my job is I run a forum for Atlas. Atlas is our incorporation product. I'm in charge of content, artifacts. I'm in charge of artifacts and community. For the community, we have a forum, and because Stripe is composed of a lot of smart people who like to see graphs that go up and to the right, I was responsible for making a graph that went up and to the right about the forum. And I picked the obvious things. I graphed daily active users and monthly active users and amount of posts on the forum. But because I did not want to write software to do something that didn't really require software to get written, I did this by just logging into the forum every month, actually on a weekly basis, daily basis at the time. It was just launched, and counting. Cindy posted today, that's 1 daily active user. John posted today, 2 daily active users, blah, blah, blah. And I would count, and then I would transcribe it into a Google spreadsheet. And you think I'm joking? No, I actually did this until my son was born. And then after my son was born and I came back to work, I sent an email, hey, our forums are doing kind of well. And I got asked by somebody else, whose name is Patrick, cool, where's your graph? And I said, oh, it's maintained manually in a spreadsheet. And he said, awesome, it hasn't been touched in 7 weeks. And I was kind of busy, having a baby and everything. And then I thought, ooh, I should toil less on this. So I looked at my options for Discourse, and just running SQL queries against a hosted instance of Discourse didn't work. So what I started doing was I would download the backup of the Discourse, that's our forum software, download the backup of our forum software, restore it to a database locally, type in my SQL queries locally, and then transcribe that into a spreadsheet. And then I did that for a couple weeks, and that's still kind of boring. So I started doing it like this. I wrote a rake task. The rake task would execute the SQL queries for me rather than me having to type them out into IRB by myself every day. Most of the other stuff stayed the same, and the rake task would output a CSV file that I could copy and paste into the spreadsheet. And something I'm going to do in the near future is to just integrate with Discourse directly, run the SQL queries, take the CSV, and then shove it into our reporting infrastructure. And I've gone from toiling a lot, from my brain sweat being used every day to run this business process, to toiling zero. I will be not involved in this business process at all. And if you slapped a credit card form on that, that would be a SaaS business. Pretty cool, right? So, when you do your SaaS business, you're going to start by integrating with lots of things. And you're going to integrate two things first. Sorry, that wasn't pause for dramatic effect. That was pause for actually being able to deliver the next two lines. Number one, you're going to integrate with Zapier, because an integration with Zapier buys you an integration with like 600 things for a one-time engineering investment. Number two, you're going to integrate with Slack. I'll tell you why later. But why are you going to do integrations? Because integrations both help you scope to people who are already paying for the thing that you want to buy, because they're paying for something directly adjacent to it. Scopes to people who are happy paying for software. And it gives you easy ways to get into the hands of those folks, because you can go to the folks you integrate with and say, I have extended your software in a meaningful fashion without you doing any engineering work by integrating it with it in a way that is fantastic. Your customers will stay on your software longer, make you more money, and be happier with your product if they adopt my product as well. Will you send an email out to your entire mailing list announcing that we are now your blessed option for doing whatever it is that thing you do? And not everyone will say yes to that, but not many people have to say yes to that for it to make a huge, huge impact on your 12K a month goal. A very important thing, not quite as important as charge more, is the fundamental theory of SaaS. And you want to memorize this and have it inscribed on the inside of your eyeballs for the rest of time. Revenue, or LTV, lifetime value is the word we sometimes say, is the product of your acquisition, how many leads you get in a month, might be how many visitors you get in a month, might be how many trials you get in a month, whatever you want to call that, times your conversion rate from lead, visitor, trial, whatever, to paying customer, times your average price point for those people, divided by your churn rate. So if your churn rate is 5% per interval per month, then your average lifetime is going to be 20 months. And so the revenue from a single customer is going to be 20 times whatever you're charging them in a month. You need to understand this equation and understand what changing variables in the equation does for the revenue with regards to a single customer, a cohort of customers, business. It's all the same. It's multiplicatively effective to touch any point in this graph. And you're going to think, wow, can I start on conversion? Really tough from where you're coming from right now. Optimizing for conversion rate is tough unless you're both sophisticated at doing it and you have lots of conversions already. You can do that after you're in the growth track next year. For the moment, you're going to optimize on price because it's so easy. Just double your prices. You're going to optimize on acquisition. And you've heard a lot of talks about how to do content marketing better, how to do advertising better. It was fantastic advice. This is one of the best MicroConfs I remember, and I've been to a lot of them, and they've all been great. But this has been like a particularly great year for that. You're going to optimize on churn. Optimizing on churn is a little harder, but you can do it a little bit through the product. I want to give you a North Star in all of your product decisions after you have a product that people are actually paying for. I will implement this feature if it produces radically more value faster for my best customers. And until you hit your 12K a month, I will implement no feature which does not produce radically more value faster for my best customers. Will I implement a new setting because someone asked for a new setting? He wants to see his, this literally happened at Appointment Reminder. I would like to be able to see the text in your web page in gray instead of black, not because I have difficulty seeing black, but because black just doesn't agree with me. And I was stupid and thought, well, that's 10 minutes of work, so yeah, why not? I'll do it. And I did it. And that's 10 minutes that didn't bring the business forward at all. Mistakes, I've made a few. But you wish that 10 minutes is the only amount of time you use to stupid features that don't move the business anywhere. But there are companies that spend years and years developing time on stupid features that don't move the business anywhere. If it's one of your best customers asking for it, and it would unlock further business in the entire class of customers they represent, implement it. If it gets your customers closer to value, if it allows them to get to a happy point of your software earlier in their use of it, implement it. if it radically transforms your application into something that they would be happy paying 10 times as much money for, implement it. If it is not one of those things, do not implement. Increasingly, software is social. Back in the day, you would run it on your own desktop, and you would be the only person interacting with it, and maybe you would share the exported version of your data with somebody over email. That day is dead. Software at a business is like everything else as a business. It is between people at the business who work together on the shared enterprise of the business. Not enterprise and like enterprise software, like enterprise and the other enterprise. That isn't from Star Trek, the third enterprise. This is why Slack is one of the first things you should build in, both because Slack is adopted by technically savvy teams that like to adopt software, and because software that you can access from Slack allows you to have conversations around the things that are happening in your software. Conversations happening around the things that are happening in your software are one of the things that is going to increase user satisfaction with your software. It's going to make it stickier. It's going to make it more likely that they continue on you. Early hack for this, one of the first things you should have in an onboarding flow is give me an email address of everybody else at your company who should be using this. Every company, every B2B SaaS company which tests get more email addresses from users has a higher uptake rate on that free trial, or in the likelihood of them going to a higher plan, and lower churn rate. This is like a cheat code for life. Honey Badger tripled, I think, their conversion rate just by putting in an interstitial which said, hey, give us the email addresses of everybody on your team so we can get them signed up with a Honey Badger account. Why does this work? Often the person who adopts your software is not the person who will be actually using it. And if it's their responsibility to go into some settings pane somewhere and spend like 15 minutes clicking a button 15 times and adding 15 team members, ain't nobody got time for that. Just give them a text box, do the parsing on the text box. Never ask your user to do something that a computer would be better at, like, say, splitting email addresses from each other. Some random things that you might want to know about business before you get deeper into running one. Businesses are really expensive. This is good for you because your customers who are businesses know that running businesses are very expensive, and therefore whatever you are thinking of charging them is cheap. That's good. This is less good for you in that you're going to have to spend a large chunk of that money that you're making from your customers on various business administration things. I spent last year, so I'm running a business by myself. I have no full-time employees. Can anyone take a guess as to what my expenses were last year? Nope. Okay, 160 grand. Was I, chowing down on caviar and expensing it to the business? No. That's just what businesses cost. It was $2,000 a month for servers, and 10 grand for international tax accounts, and 10 grand for the other hop of international tax accounts. And then I had someone answering emails, and wouldn't you know, if you answer emails for a year, that costs you about $30,000, and ... So, charge more. Very non-obvious to me that even outside of Silicon Valley, the economic returns to running a business are back-weighted. What does this mean? So you're producing not just artifacts for marketing your business, but your business, the sum of value that you create is itself capital that you get to take with you. And even if you think that you're going to be in software for the rest of your life, and God willing, I will be in software for the rest of my life, that particular business, that particular bit of capital is something that you might sell one day. And you might think, well, I'm not really building the next Facebook or Google. How much is that really worth if I'm extracting money from the business every year just to live on? That's my end dream state. That was my end goal state as well. But if I look at what my profit was over running businesses for 10 years, and then what the single check was at the end when I sold it, it turns out that in my particular case, 40% of the economic returns for my family came from that last check. And this was not, a huge business. For more on this, talk to Thomas Smale from FE International. And a very important thing for while you're at MicroConf, make friends. Keep them close. This is a ridiculously isolating line of work to be in. Your spouse might not understand exactly what it is you do every day, because fundamentally you go every day to the internet and then money shows up. Your society might not understand what it is you do every day. I remember sitting down in a cafe in Ogaki, and I would do this a lot because I had no office at that time. And at the end of about 3 weeks of this, the waitress came up to me and said, "I'm so sorry, but just keep sending those emails. Somebody will employ you one of these days." And, well, she was right, but a long story. I'm really, really strongly bullish on you using MicroConf to find lifelong friends. I've found them here. Would give many shout-outs, but it would take the next 10 minutes. So find your tribe here, and do stay in touch with each other. Do help each other through the downtimes. No matter how successful you are, there will be downtimes. Contact information and whatnot. I am Patrick at Kelsumius. I am not Patrick at Stripe. Do not use that inbox. It does not go to me. Do use that inbox if you want to talk to him. He's happy to get emails from you. Seriously. I'm Patio11 at Stripe. If you want to do Atlas for incorporation for your business, I would love to make that happen. But talk to me first. It isn't the right choice for all of you yet. 2 years from now, I want to be able to comfortably say that 90% of this room is on MicroConf, but we're not quite there. 90% of this room is on MicroConf. 100% of this room is on MicroConf. 90% of you all should be on Atlas. Someday, 90% of the technology industry should be, but we're not quite there yet. If you want that course on doing email courses, click the bit.ly link there. Just give me your email address and your name. I'll send you a copy a few days after MicroConf, no obligation, yada, yada, yada. I wrote a thing about the boring mechanics of running businesses because I really love the geeky, boring mechanics like wire transfers and bookkeeping and accounting. That is fun for me because I am broken. That guide is totally free and available at that link, stripe.com/atlas/guide. Feel free to read it. If you see things in the guide that are not in the guide, but really should be in the guide, send me an email. It is literally my job to create those artifacts. And finally, my email list is at training.kelsumius.com. You should probably be on it, even though I don't send email that much anymore. So you could skip it if you want to, but don't skip the other stuff. It's kind of cool.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.